I'm Dana Perino.
I'm Jason Chaffetz.
I'm Rachel Campos-Duffy, and this is the Fox News Rundown.
Monday, October 23rd, 2023, I'm Mike Emanuel. There is tremendous turmoil across the globe from the Holy Land to Ukraine. For Israel to make sure Hamas can never strike again, there's a tough fight ahead.
Yeah, this certainly is going to be difficult and a critical juncture, both for the Palestinians in Gaza and for Israel.
I'm Chris Foster. Militaries are finding more and new ways to use artificial intelligence on and off the battlefield.
So it'll continue to evolve over time, and the countries or the militaries that spend more time focusing on that are going to have an edge over those that don't.
And I'm Carol Roth. I've got the final word on the Fox News Rundown.
The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is growing, but an Israeli government spokesperson says the enemy must not be able to access any aid that enters the region.
We will make sure that they will get this humanitarian aid, but this aid cannot end up in the hands of Hamas. That is our condition.
But Congressman Adam Smith, the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, urges that help is desperately needed for everyone else.
Look, there is no question that there are risks in sending the aid in, risks that Hamas will take advantage of it. But I would ask, anyone who's critical of this, should it really be our plan to starve 2 million Palestinians in Gaza? I think there's considerable risk in doing that as well.
2 American hostages were released in recent days, but Secretary of State Antony Blinken said at a press conference last Friday, there's plenty more work to be done.
Any cooperation that we can elicit that facilitates the release of hostages, any cooperation that we can elicit that secures the provision of humanitarian assistance to the men, women, and children in Gaza who so desperately need it. We work on that every day.
Back here at home, there are now 9 House Republicans running to be the new House Speaker, after some big names like Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan failed to secure the necessary 217 votes to earn the job. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell on Fox News Sunday said the House needs a leader soon.
I hope they can get a speaker sometime soon, because it does send, I think, a poor message to our allies and our enemies around the world. And we also have work to do. We have appropriation bills to pass. We have a supplemental to deal with. So I'm pulling for them to finally wrap this up sometime soon.
And some powerful members are saying they don't want the job.
No, but I certainly want one.
Ohio Republican Congressman Mike Turner is chairman of the House Select Committee on Intelligence.
I do think that the conference is going through a process that'll help identify a leader that can unite the House. I certainly supported Kevin McCarthy, who, as you know, was fired by a handful of Republicans and 208 Democrats who didn't want him working with Democrats, which, of course, is a sad state of affairs in Washington. But we've got a lot of important work to do, and I'm certainly hopeful this week that this will be concluded.
You have any sense of how it shakes out? I mean, I know you're just hoping it wraps up, but do you have a favorite at this point, or just have to go through the process?
My favorite is who can get to 217. I'm hopeful that we can also have a process where the person is identified before we're on with the drama on the House floor. I think we have an ability to come together and be able to identify somebody who can lead, and I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, let's dig into your intelligence portfolio. As chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Saturday marked 2 weeks since the brutal Hamas rampage that continues raging on. First trickle of humanitarian aid entered Gaza this weekend after lengthy negotiations with 20 trucks carrying food, water, and medical supplies. With the severity of the situation, this stream of aid is unlikely to last long. Where do things stand at this point, in your view, and how should the United States continue aiding the region?
Right, well, it's certainly good to see the aid trucks beginning to move. The Palestinians in Gaza are hostages and certainly victims of Hamas themselves. Israel must be able to remove Hamas and their attempts to continue to operate as a terrorist organization. They are a franchise of Iran, and from the atrocities that we've seen several weeks ago, it certainly shows that this goes to the heart of the national security threat for Israel. The administration's putting together a package of aid that will include the ability to provide additional weapons and also an intelligence assistance to Israel in this process. But this certainly is going to be difficult and a critical juncture, both for the Palestinians in Gaza and for Israel as they try to remove Hamas, lessen the terrorist threat there, and hopefully lead to a period of peace.
There's been some suggestion over the weekend that a ground invasion of Gaza has been held up because the United States wanted more time, I think, probably to get aid in and probably to try to get some civilians out. Are you able to comment on that? Any guidance from your view?
Well, I would say certainly getting aid in and getting the hostages out is incredibly important and a top priority. I do think that the United States should not be interfering in Israel's attempts to prosecute this war and this conflict with Hamas. We don't want to put them in a disadvantage. At the same time, we've got to get an environment where the hostages can get out and that aid can get in. That's going to be a difficult balance, but we certainly hope for the best.
I've seen a range of numbers, but one of the most recent numbers I saw was about 200 hostages being held by Hamas. We saw 2 Americans were released Friday, which may have prompted the movement of aid. Do you think Hamas will continue releasing hostages if aid is sent into Gaza?
Well, certainly we know that the portions of Hamas that committed these incredible atrocities, killing over 1,000 innocent civilians, Israelis, appeared to be operating separate from the leadership of Hamas. So there's a period where Hamas is reacting to try to understand what their new environment is, and I think they too perhaps may have been surprised of the extent of hostages that they found taken into Gaza. Hopefully, as they understand the importance of returning those innocent hostages, that the leadership of Hamas will answer that call. And certainly it's a good sign seeing the initial 2 that have been released.
While all this is happening, the United States is continuing to aid Ukraine in its really tough fight against Russia and also working to secure our southern border. President Biden just laid out a $105 billion national security package to aid all these crises. Your thoughts on this amount, and is it a mistake to tie a few of these things together?
This really is a national security package, and right now we're seeing these national security threats jointly. And the threat in Ukraine is not just an issue of Ukraine or do we support them or do we not. It really is an issue of Russia and their attempts to expand their authoritarian regime's reach. What they're doing with their military, with the advancement of their what people are calling exotics or brand new nuclear weapons, are intended to absolutely threaten the United States. They continue to pose a direct threat to the United States. And what we're seeing, obviously, with Hamas and Israel is Iran's influence. And Iran attempting to use Hamas and Hezbollah to attack Israel, again, our ally, a democracy. These 2 forces, Iran and Russia, must be responded to.
Will this national security package be one of the first votes held by a new speaker? And if so, will you be selling it to your conference about the need to pass it?
Well, the package has just gotten to the Senate. They're going to take about 2 weeks to modify the package. I do not think that the package should just be adopted as sent over by the White House. I think there are things that need to be changed. Certainly with respect to the southern border package, I think the administration's flip-flop in indicating that they will now support a wall clearly shows that the wall barrier at our border is necessary. I think the funds that are in this upcoming bill should be redirected to completing that wall, that barrier. There are also some additional changes probably that need to be done in the Ukrainian and the Israeli aid, and those will be very important debates as we look to move this forward for what will be the United States national security.
Let's talk about the threat Iran poses right now. As a known supporter of Hamas, the threat of Iran getting involved in a broader Middle East conflict looms heavily. You recently co-sponsored the Stop Harboring Iranian Petroleum Act alongside Congressman Mike Lawler. How could this deter Iran, and what else should be done to ensure Iran will not further assist Hamas?
administration has been very weak on its sanctions with Iran. They've been pursuing a follow-on to what was known as the JCPOA, the nuclear agreement on enrichment of uranium with Iran, which has been proven to be futile, after then paying $6 billion for U.S. detainees in Iran. Their attempts to try to curry favor with Iran, I think has really been very difficult for us overall to achieve the goals that we need of trying to contain Iran's adventuresomeness in the area, certainly their support for Hezbollah and Hamas, direct threats to Israel. If Hezbollah gets involved in this fight, in this conflict, obviously this will make it more difficult for Israel, and it certainly will show that the two franchise terrorist organizations of Hamas and Hezbollah have joined together with their support with Iran to attack Israel.
Do you think the administration has been wise to send the amount of U.S. resources to the region as a show of support for our key ally, Israel?
Absolutely. I think the military presence there is there to be a deterrent, and I think it certainly has that impact. The adversaries of Israel and Iran know that the United States have significant capabilities in the region, and to the extent that they would either threaten the United States or directly threaten Israel, the United States has the ability to bring a military force to bear.
You have an intelligence portfolio. Is it stunning to you that Israeli intelligence, which is typically known to be top-notch, missed what Hamas was planning against the people of Israel?
This was a huge intelligence failure, but it was also an operational failure. Even once it began to unfold, the ability of Israel to respond was incredibly slow. And the United States usually supports Israel in its intelligence gathering efforts. I think in part this is part of a reflection of the political tumultuousness that you've seen in Israel. They've had back and forth prime ministers. Netanyahu's now back in power. They have very small margins for their wins in the Knesset. I think when you have that type of a succession of tumultuousness politically, it begins to weaken administratively, and of course your military leadership also. I think that should be a message to us as we look to the difficulty we're going through, that this type of political and governmental turmoil does have an impact overall on your security.
I was going to follow with that point. Basically, is there a lesson for us to learn? Because it feels like the two parties are bickering a lot these days and maybe distracted a bit from some of the things that you study with your background in intelligence.
Yeah, this really is very tragic. We're in a situation now where because Kevin McCarthy refused to shut down the government, a handful of people joining with 208 Democrats shut down the House of Representatives. We're more than 18 days now that the House has been shut down, unable to do our work. And certainly as we see the national security threats that are growing around the world, we need to get back to work.
He is the chairman of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, Mike Turner, the great state of Ohio. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll be following the speaker race this week. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Take care.